Welcome to another episode of Between the Pipes with Archie from All Everything Entertainment.
What's up, guys? Thank you for joining us on Between the Pipes. This is our first episode here. I've got Daniel Bakley with me, who will be joining in on this episode this week. We're going to give you guys the inside scoop on what's going on in the playoffs, which start tomorrow. You excited, Dan?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Okay, so basically what we're going to go through is we'll start off with the play-in round, the predictions, and then from there we'll go through each game, series by series, and give you guys a little bit of a breakdown and what we think, our thoughts, and all that. So to kick things off, we'll go ahead and start with the play-in round, and starting off in the West with the Flames and Jets. So Flames and Jets, I've got the Flames coming out of this one. Daniel, you've got the Jets. Thoughts on that one?
Yeah, like this was one of the tough matchups that I had to pick. As you know, the Flames, they obviously have Johnny Gaudreau, Giordano, and whatnot. And where I went with this one is I like the lineup on the Jets where they have Connors and Scheifele, and then if they can get Patrick Laine going, they're going to be a tough out. And then their goalie is playing great this year. He's been good the past couple years. Hellebuyck, and if they can just score and then him play lights out, they can go far. They're a sleeper team for me.
All right, I'll agree with you there. Unfortunately, I've got the Flames coming out of this one. I just think they've got a little more of the edge over the Jets. Again, and we'll get into this later, but Patrick Laine definitely needs to step it up and step up quite a bit for the Jets, because otherwise I don't see them going too far in the series. Again, keeping in mind that the first round or the play-in round is actually a best of 5. So this could be over in as quick as 3 games, right? So they don't really have much time to get comfortable. That first game is going to be pretty crucial. And I just think Calgary has the edge on them when it comes to coming out of the gate. And we'll see what happens. But so we'll have a look. I mean, I've got the Flames, you've got the Jets. And we'll take it to the next round. So we've got next game is Arizona and Nashville. And I've got the Predators coming out of this one, and you've got the Coyotes. So with this one, I'll start off. I've got the Predators here coming out strong, just because, honestly, I don't think the Coyotes have what it takes to advance beyond that, especially in the way the season's been shortened for them and whatnot. The Predators come out with the advantage, in my opinion, and I honestly think that they've got the outer edge over the Coyotes in this one.
Yeah, I went back and forth. Like, of course, Nashville, they always have the defense, and they got the goalie. That's the setup they always have. It's always been offense that's been a struggle for them, and Roman Yushi has been great for that team. I just went with if they can get Arizona can get David Camper going. They're just with how they play under Rick Tocchet. He's been a great coach for them. No one's like laying up the back of the net a lot, but they play tough nose defense. And then they added Phil Kessel, and he can get hot in a moment. And if he gets hot hit on that team, I think they can pull out an upset, because he can create havoc with that defense. And Nashville hasn't been the top nose team that they've been the past couple of years. They've taken a step back, and I could see this going 5 games as long as Arizona can play great in the back of the net and on their side of the defense, which has been like an underrated part of their team.
Yeah, I agree. And exactly that. Arizona's definitely going to have to rely on Phil Kessel to come out the gate pretty fast. He is typically a playoff performer. Whether or not he'll show up, who knows, yet to be determined. But if he does show up, this may change things quite a bit. Nashville's going to have to look out. In the next round, we've got the Oilers and Blackhawks. So we both took the Oilers with this one. I think with Edmonton being the underdogs Chicago being the underdogs coming out of this one, they've got the experience. They've got a lot of experience between Taves and Kane. I'm just not sure their goaltending is going to be able to outdo Edmonton's firepower. I honestly think Edmonton's going to come out scoring on all cylinders. I mean, you got the two-headed monster in Draisaitl and McDavid, and honestly, I'd be scared to play them no matter what team they got. But I think Chicago's a little too old for this one. Edmonton's going to come out a lot faster and scoring a lot more goals, and I honestly think I give the edge to Edmonton in this one.
Yeah, even though I heard that there was a report out that Jonathan Toews has been happier. He's been just playing, just enjoying the game now instead of taking it too seriously, and which could be a plus for him, knowing that Kane is the guy on the team right now. But a thing that I see with Chicago is I don't like their defense right now, and Brent Seabrook isn't going to play, and they're going to rely a lot on Duncan Keith to do a lot in the back end. And Crawford I believe he's supposed to be playing, and I think he was hurt right before the pandemic started. Mm-hmm. It's just going to be one of those things where Edmonton is a scoring team. They score a lot, and then even say they get Adam Larson playing well. That would not look good for Chicago. And I could see Chicago stealing one in Chicago. I mean, not in Chicago. I could see them stealing one in games 2 or 3, just because ice rust, because they've only played like 1 or 2 exhibitions. But it's going to be Edmonton.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see Chicago losing straight or getting swept, but it'll be a tight series. But I think Edmonton, like you said, is definitely going to be coming out on top in that one. That brings us over to Vancouver and Minnesota. Again, we both chose the Canucks here. It looks like we're heading in the same direction. With this one, I'm going to give it to Vancouver just because I think they're due. They're long overdue. And unfortunately, with Luongo not in the picture, I think this is the year where they make a little more noise. And I honestly think they're going to come out on top over Minnesota. Even out coaching, I just think Vancouver's got everything set up differently. Their games are played differently. And I think when it comes down to the offense, I think Vancouver's offense is definitely stronger than Minnesota's as well. So that's why I'm going with the Canucks on this one.
Yeah, and then watch out for Pedersen. Ever since he got drafted, he's been a sneaky player with how he's been for them. I really like him. I think he's going to break out even more next year. But I see this playoffs being like a coming out party for him, where I think he's going to be one of the top players in the first round. I don't like the Wild. I think the back and forth in goalie, because they never just pick one guy. It's always 2 or 3 guys that they use during the season, and then they just go with whoever's hot. They're aging a line of a pair of Suter and Zach Parise. They're not getting any younger. Mm-hmm. They're getting old, and I could see them like trying to pull one out because it's one of the last times in it. But I just see Vancouver being too young, too fast, and more consistent than Minnesota.
For sure. Absolutely. I'll agree with you on that one as well. Brings us to the series I'm looking forward to. We got Columbus and Toronto. We both took the Leafs on this one as well. A lot of people are going to say that it could be a toss-up. Tortorella is quite the coach. I know a lot of people had the conversation with him being in the mix for Coach of the Year in doing what he did with Columbus. Now, being biased be what it may, I'm going with the Leafs. Either way, I honestly think Toronto's offense will definitely come out scoring and fast. And the Leafs showed this last season that they can score goals and they can score goals in bunches. And when they do, they have no problem controlling the game. I'm a little worried if there's a low scoring game or if they're, late in the game, they're up by a goal. Toronto tends to forget that it's a 60-minute matchup and they tend to blow leads as many would know. So in this case, they definitely need guys like Freddie Anderson to stand on his head, play his A game, because if that, if the Jackets get into his head early on, I think the Leafs are going to have a bit of a struggle. But otherwise, when it comes to the offense, as long as you got guys like Matthews doing what he's been doing all year, he was definitely on pace to hitting that 50-goal mark. Nylander needs to, keep doing what he's doing, maybe step it up a little more. Mitch Marner hopefully will come out and play his game the way he's been playing it, and even his defensive play with last season in the playoffs, he definitely did really well. So it'll come down to that. The Leafs defense is a little suspect. I know we had that discussion earlier today, and they definitely need their veterans to step it up. Jake Muzzin and Morgan Rielly aren't going to be the only two that are going to be able to play a full 60 minutes. So you got guys like Tyson Barrie who were brought in to help the young core, help the guys grow a little better. And hopefully he finds his game and is able to assist the younger defensemen with helping them defend in front of Anderson, because he's not going to be able to face 40, 50 shots a game and stop every single one.
Yeah, you got somebody, a fellow Leafs fan, colleague Kimberly. And then you got Tyler saying, go Nashville.
Oh, Preds fan, yeah.
Yeah. The way I see this one is I see this one going 5 games for the fact that, you got Toronto. They got two solid scoring lines on the first 2 lines, and then Anderson is a really good goalie. But like you said, their Achilles heel is always going to be their defense. They give up way too many shots on Anderson, which always just gets him flustered at times, because when he's seeing consistently 40, 45 shots a game, he's going to give up a few goals, because that's a lot of shots to have to take in when the blue line doesn't do their job that they're supposed to. Like you said, Muzzin, Barrie, they thought Barrie was going to be good this year, and then he's had a down year for him. And then where I see Columbus, they let Sergei Bobrovsky go, but then they replace him with Merzlikins, who has done a great job in goal there. And I like the blue line with Seth Jones and Wierenski. They've done well. And then Pierre Dubois has been very good on the front line. And I could see him taking a couple of games, just because they can be able to keep the Leafs to 1 or 2 goals. And then the Blue Jackets can get a lot of shots on net. But where the difference is I just think that the 2 lines will be too much for the Blue Jackets in the long run to take 3 out of 5 games from Toronto.
Yep. And, like you said, right? I mean, Elvis has been hot in net for Columbus. And, I mean, if the Leafs end up in a situation where, let's say, Freddie Anderson gets hurt, previously that's been a big problem, having to rely on the backup goalie. This year, hopefully, we don't have to worry about that. But in the event that they do have to, they went out and did some shopping during the season and replaced the big problem they had as the backup. So I mean, with that being said, hopefully we don't have to worry about a backup coming into this one, and the Leafs will be the better team and get out of that first round, get those jitters out, because everybody knows that first round's been pretty painful for Toronto for I don't know how long, but too long if you ask me.
Since they drafted Austin Matthews, it's been his curse. He's played great, but then when it comes to the playoffs, it's like the first round haunts him, and
that's exactly it. So
all they need,
they'll make it out. I think they'll make it out. We'll be good, as long as we don't have to face the Bruins in the second round, because that'll really suck. I mean, I want that, but I don't. So let's just get past the first round and see where it takes us. Next up, the Rangers and Hurricanes. We've both got the Rangers coming out of this one as well. You can go ahead first.
Yeah, and I see this one. I got the Rangers in 4 games. I do like Carolina, and of course, old Flyers player Rod Brind'Amour is the coach, and he's a beloved guy here. He was Mr. Face-Off, and then another tough-nosed guy like Rick Tocchet. and the way he coaches is great. The guys respond to him well. I worry like the forwards, and then of course they got Sebastian Aho, however you say his last name. He's the star on that team, and then they don't have anybody other than him that's, in my opinion, is great. They're just like solid, but the whole team is solid. But where I think they're weak is having Peter Mrazek in goal, whereas for New York, their goalie situations are really good. I like their goalie. I like their the blue line. Tony DeAngelo uh, played great this year after having a semi breakout campaign in Arizona. I kind of wish Arizona didn't get rid of him. He's a guy from I believe from this area where I live in, and he's played great for them. They got Subin Neg, and then they drafted Kako Capo, or I always say his name wrong, and then they have, of course, Artemi Panarin. He's he's up for a Player of the Year on that team. They're loaded with young talent, and then they're not even going to use Lundqvist is
Yeah.
the kicker. Like he hasn't played good this year. They're using the other guy that split time with them last year, and I just think that they're going to be too much speed wise for Carolina.
Yeah, and I mean, you look at the Rangers also, as you mentioned with Panarin, he he's up there, man. 69 games this season. He had 95 points, and the big plus is he was a plus 36 in those 69 games. So, I mean, when that guy's on the ice, things happen. And then you got Zibanejad as well. So I honestly think the Rangers there's a good chance they might actually sweep in this series. The Hurricane, I'm not sure that we're going to see much of the storm surge this year with them. And I honestly don't think they're going to have what it takes to get past the Rangers. They're just too strong.
And I'm looking at it now. I thought Gorgiev was going to be in goal, but it looks like they're going to have Shesterkin in goal.
Yeah, so Shesterkin's going to be in net.
Yeah.
They have a really good problem to have. I mean, you have, Shesterkin as your goalie. You've got Georgiev that came out of nowhere, and then you've got Lundqvist as, he's there. If something happens, you don't have to worry. I mean, you got really a good problem to have in net as a Rangers fan. I mean, tough decision to make with who gets I guess they're probably going to ride the hot hand and see what they do with that. But I mean, again, I don't think they're going to have a problem in net. I think Carolina's going to have the bigger problem solving the rest of the team.
And then Tank says, I miss Panarin so much. Yeah, I still question why Chicago got rid of him, but things happen.
An old team. They just love to keep getting older.
Yeah.
Okay, next up, we've got the Canadiens and the Penguins. So I'm getting grilled for this one, but I'm honestly saying Montreal is going to finally do what the Montreal Canadiens fans have been hoping for. It'll really come down to Carey Price. Carey Price is, I mean, without question, one of the most incredible goalies in the NHL. Fantastic in net. There's no doubt there. It's just a matter of the defense in front of him. Will they play? Will Shea Weber step up and be who he needs to be as a leader on this team, on the defensive core? With Montreal, you've got guys like Max Domi that I think it's a matter of time. He's just waiting to explode. And what better time than to do it in the limelight when everybody's watching and everybody's expecting the Pens to win this series. Now, with the Pens coming out, you've got the obvious. They're two-headed monster with Crosby and Malkin. I mean, that's a heck of a firepower that they've got themselves. The only thing is I think it got in their heads last season, coming out of that first round and not showing up. They're going to have a lot more to prove this year. And I honestly think with Montreal also being in that boat and wanting to prove that, they shouldn't be there technically if you look at the typical standings and whatnot, but they got in, and I think they're going to make sure to prove a point that they've got what it takes to get through that first round.
Yeah, and I think a big thing for Pittsburgh is, for me, why I think they're going to win it, of course, is because they got Hensel back, and he's been one of their best players in the postseason the past couple years. And then they also have Hornquist. Their goalie's been playing well. Actually, I think that they're going to have a situation of who they're going to start in goal. I actually don't think it's going to be Matt Murray. I think after the exhibition game with the Flyers, where he struggled, and the other guy came in and played well, minus that overtime goal, which was just a hard goal to play when it got Scott Lawton just poked it up into the air over his glove. But I think they're going to change goalies. I think they're going to be too much because you're going to have to rely a lot on Max Domi up there because Shea Weber, he hasn't played the same in the past couple of years since he's been traded. And I still question to this day why they traded PK Subban for traded him for Shea Weber, because PK is just a younger version of him with a little bit more offensively, in my opinion. And ever since he got traded, he's either been hurt or he's underproduced, and they don't got the weapons like the Penguins do. And then the Penguins' blue line, in my opinion, is better right now. And I think they're going to sweep the Canadians. As much as I want the Canadians to win, being a Flyers fan, they're gonna advance.
So you're calling the sweep on this one. I mean,
Yeah.
Outside of Domi, they've got Gallagher, who, again, if he's level-headed, I'm sure he's an offensive threat for them as well. Nick Suzuki hopefully comes out. He's one of those guys who everybody was talking about at the beginning of the season. So if Suzuki's able to live up to those expectations, I think he'll provide a little bit of speed for that offense up front. But yeah, I mean, you're right. The Shea Weber and PK Subban deal was one that is always going to be left, kind of questioning what was Montreal's goal in that deal. I mean, personally, I think that Subban has a lot more to offer from a future perspective. I've heard mixed stories that, that there was some issues in the change room, some leadership issues and whatnot. And they were just heading in a different direction. And they thought bringing Weber in, and I guess with Weber's being a veteran and some of the experience that he's got to bring. And I mean, he still has that monster of a shot. It's just a matter of time before, he's going to find the net. But again, like you said, can he stay healthy? Can he stay out of the IR? Because if he goes down, he gets hurt, Montreal's in trouble. I mean, Carey Price is not going to take this team on his own and carry them through Pittsburgh.
How do you feel about them when they traded Max Pacioretty, who was a great player for them?
Yeah, I mean, Pacioretty, again, that was one of those trades where I think Montreal, they had no choice. They kind of had to essentially rebuild, but not from the bottom up. I think they tried to take a shortcut, and this will prove whether or not that was a good idea for them to do that.
After bouncing around a little bit, he's found a great home in Vegas.
Exactly. Yeah, and then in hindsight, I mean, maybe that's going to hurt them, but not having him around. But I mean, I still think they're going to pull off the upset, and I think Carey Price is going to have a hell of a first round against the Penguins. Next up, we've got Florida and the Islanders. I've got the Islanders here. You've got the Panthers. You can go ahead with this one.
This is another one that I see going the 4 or 5 games. You got a Florida team under Quenneville with Bobrovsky in goal that haven't found their way all season. They got the firepower on the forward lines, led by Huberdeau, and they just haven't clicked at all season. Yet they've been able to sustain the mediocre play, and where I see it is if Bobrovsky can show up, I think they can take this because he hasn't played well at all this season. I mean, I don't know if it's because he put too much pressure on himself going here with the contract, or he doesn't have the defense in front of him now to protect him from getting shot on so many times because he's taken up kind of like in Toronto where they give up quite a bit of shots here and there. It's not as bad, but there's games where he's had a lot of shots on net consistently. The Islanders aren't going to score on you that much. They got Barkov, and that's Barsaw. I mean, and to me, that's it. Their style of play is defense, goalie, and then counterattack. It's kind of like they're like a poor man's Nashville, but where they do that, they get enough to get into the playoffs, and sometimes they steer a series because they keep the goal count low and they win a game, kind of like how they did. Was it last year against the Penguins? Right? Was it the Penguins?
I don't remember too much about
it. It was last year or the year before where they swept the Penguins,
mm-hmm.
and then they lost to Carolina. Yeah, it was last year.
Yeah, last year,
and I just don't see. I can see Bobrovsky getting hot here, keeping New York to a goal, and then Florida can play not their best and still score 2 goals and win a game or win a few games like that. Mm-hmm. They don't have to play the best to beat the Islanders because the Islanders dumb themselves down enough to where the opposite team, as long as they can score a couple goals and the goalie can just do enough, they can win games against New York.
Yeah, I mean, with the Islanders, I think they're going to ride that last year's playoffs into this one, and this was a tough one. I wasn't sure exactly what's going to happen in this series.
Yeah.
Florida could surprise. I think if there is an upset, this could be it. I think it'll go 5 games, possibly 4. I think this will come down to what happens in games 1 and 2. I mean, if one of these teams goes up 2-0, I think it'll be a sweep. It's just because it'll get into the other team's head. I mean, with the Isles having, they got to rely on Barzal and Aho, and Jordan Eberle has been kind of, the guy that he's there. I just don't see him producing the way he could. So he might be one of those guys that you're going to need to see step up and take this team to another level. I mean, after losing John Tavares to Toronto, I know, their whole thing was, did they lose their leader? Did they lose everything? And they were all bitter about it and upset about it. But I mean, it hasn't gone that bad for them. Obviously for the Leafs, I think it was a big plus in adding Tavares, but with the Islanders losing him, they still have a team. They've still been doing pretty well without him. With Anders Lee stepping in as captain, I think they will, they'll continue. And I think this is going to be an interesting series. It could go any way really. But I'm sticking with the Islanders. I just think they're going to have the edge. Because Bobrovsky, again, if he doesn't like the way he's playing, he'll come down on himself and it'll just end it for him. So it'll be an interesting series, that's for sure.
And I think watch out for Florida's second line of Huberdeau, Hula, and Hoffman.
Yes, absolutely. Can't forget about that.
Because I think Hoffman's going to have a good series.
Yep, definitely will. So that takes us over to the round robin, as they're calling it, the seeding round. So your top 4 teams in the East, top 4 in the West, will all play in a little mini tournament amongst themselves to reseed 1 through 4, which will determine the first round matchups based on the qualifying winners. So we'll start it off with the East. I'm predicting in the East, currently, they go into it as Boston 1, Washington 2, Tampa 3, Philly 4. I think it'll end with Boston 1, Philly 2, Washington 3, Tampa 4. I just feel like Boston is just too strong, although this could be Philly as well, finishing up top, in my opinion. Washington, I'm not sure if they're there. They'll get through, do what they got to do to get through that first round. But I don't think they're going to outplay all 3 of these other teams to finish top. So that's why I'm sticking. I honestly think it'll be Boston, Philly, Washington, Tampa in that order, finishing in the East. You, on the other hand, have Tampa, Philly, Boston, Washington. Give us a little bit on that.
Yeah, well, everybody knows Tampa Bay is a juggernaut offensively with the pieces they have, and then they got a great goalie in the net, and then they're no slouch scoring on the blue line with Hedman leading the way. I just see them continuing that trend. They can give up 2 goals, but then they'll score 4 or 5 goals. That's the way they go. They don't need a shutdown on that team. They don't need a shutdown blue line guy because they score enough to where they can protect the goalie with enough goals to where he can have a mediocre to above average game where he doesn't have to play stellar. And I like the Flyers moving up to 2 because other than the Lightning, which they've struggled against, even though in the last game that they played, they gave up 2 goals in the first period, and then I think they're down 5-2 in the third, and then they came back and lost 5-4, and they started to find their way against Tampa.
Mm-hmm.
Against a known fact, against this year, against Washington, Boston, and Pittsburgh, the Flyers are 8-2-2 against those 3 teams. Because Pittsburgh's the 5 seed right now, and then you got Washington right now is the 3, and then Boston is I think the 2 right now. So that bodes well for them. They get Boston right away. I think Zdeno Chara is getting a little old. What he has is his height, but when you're playing slow against these teams that are getting faster now, and they're gonna just go up and back around him, I think that's gonna be a weakness for Boston is their blue line. I love how David Pastrak's playing this year, and that's why I gave him the 3 because he's just been on a tear. And if he doesn't get second or third in Player of the Year, MVP, I'd be shocked. And then they've had they've had good play out of the goalie situation with Rask. But I just see with the Flyers, I see him as the 2. They have a really good balanced team. They finally have a goalie now. He's only 22, Carter Hart from Canada.
Mm-hmm.
As long as he stays healthy, to me, he's like a top 5 goalie in this league.
Yeah, and then he's got a lot of years ahead of him too.
He just has to stay on the ice. That's his thing, like getting a little here and there, and then they manage him well and what better way? Like Brian Elliott, they were able to keep him. He stayed on as the backup. He's been way better as the backup than he was the starter. And then you've improved the blue line. You bring in Braun. That was a pick that people were mad about, but he's played great. They bring in Niskin from Washington, who's been an unsung hero on that team. Everybody says there's 2 guys on the team that are the first in the building, and then the last to leave, and then it's him and Sean Couturier, and they say that he's been like a quiet leader on this team.
Yeah, and I mean,
and then you got their offensive talent with the where they've added a bunch of young pieces.
Yeah, like you were saying,
to the Drews, Voracek, Couturier, they've added Lindbohm, who just got added back on.
Yeah, and as you were saying with regards to Chara, I mean, yeah, he's got reach, he's got size. That's about all he's got, though, because he's definitely lost the speed. We saw his speed get exposed the last 2 playoffs, and I don't see him being that dangerous anymore. And as big as he is, other players are able to skate past him a lot quicker. We saw it happen several times last year during the playoffs, even during the regular season. I think players are starting to learn if they can stay out of his reach, stay out of that lane, they can definitely beat him to the outside in a foot race. So, I mean, Chara is not going to be as effective as he has been for the Bruins in the past. And I think that after this season, I think Boston's going to do some retooling after these playoffs. Regardless of how far they go, they're going to definitely have to look back at their defense and make some changes, and potentially start looking into future captaincy. They got guys like DeBrusk, and who's effective. He's that guy that everybody hates, but will still be able to make a move and be effective. He's like a thorn in everybody's side. So it'll be interesting to see how they do in this seeding, and whether or not they're going to, maybe they want to finish in a position where they know their opponents, which we talked about as well. It sucks that technically a team can do that. Based on how the games go, they can technically play where they want to seed and then pretty much pick their first round partners. And I'm sure Boston would love to see Toronto again, because for them, Toronto's considered a walk in the park, but hopefully this year that's not going to happen. So we go over to the West. Currently, the West ended the season with St. Louis on top, Colorado in second, Vegas third, and Dallas fourth. I have them switching things up a little bit with St. Louis remaining on top and Colorado second, but I have Dallas finishing ahead of Vegas. I think Vegas had their Cinderella story, and that was it. I think Dallas is going to see a lot from Tyler Seguin this year. I think he's going to, he's always been there, but I think this year is going to be a big year for him in the playoffs, and I think that'll give them the edge over Vegas in the standings in the round robin as well. And we switch over to you, and you've got the Avalanche finishing first with the Knights second, Blues third, and Stars fourth. I'm not sure if you're still there. I don't hear you. Yeah, I think I've got you back now. Nope, lost you again.
Yeah. Anyway, anytime you have a guy like Nathan MacKinnon on your team, you're going to be up there because he's one of the best players. Can you hear me now?
Yep, got you there.
Good.
You're cutting in and out.
Can you hear me? No. Okay, that's probably where I was. No, as I was saying, anytime you have a player like Nathan MacKinnon on your team, you're going to be up there in the standing. How about now?
Yeah, I've got you. Everything is looking good now. So we got some technical issues here.
Am I good?
Yeah, I hear you good.
Okay.
And just a little bit.
Whenever you have a guy like Nathan MacKinnon on your team, you're always going to be up there in the stands. He's one of the top players.
Okay, and then I've lost the audio again there.
How about now?
Yep, now I hear you again. Okay, so we'll try moving on and see how we go here.
Good?
Yep. Okay, so the next segment we've got is to step things up. We know that every team's got their players that kind of disappear. So we've got players who kind of come and go and disappear in the playoffs versus how they play during the regular season. We've discussed previously that we feel need to step it up a bit. So we'll go through the list of players that we need to. So we'll go through with. So we'll go through with the forwards first. So with the forwards, you've got Capo Caco and Patrick Laine that you feel need to step up. And I'm going with Kadri and Laine as well. Give us your thoughts on Caco and Laine and why you feel they need to step up and change their game.
Yep. Do you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, yeah. The reason I put Patrick Laine on there was 2 years ago, he was up there creeping up near 100 points. He was the star on the team. They had him, Shifley, and they had Hellbuck, and then they just added Kyle Connors. But the past 2 seasons, he's seen a dip in production. And they're still playing up there. Basically, they replaced Dustin Bufflin's production with Connors. And even though they've been playing great, Laine has been the one that has fallen off. If they can get him settled away and playing to the level he's capable of playing, they are a team that can challenge for the cup this year, even at the 9 seed that they're at right now. And that's why I picked him earlier against the Flames, because I see him catching fire, playing like he should instead of getting inside his head, like we talked about the other day. And he's just a guy that needs to step up to take him from just making the playoff team to a playoff a cup contender. And then I picked Capco because he's second overall pick. He has a lot of potential there. There's a reason why he was drafted by them, because of what they expect out of him. And he only had, I believe it was 33, 34 points this year. And they need more out of him to be like the third or fourth option on that team.
Okay. So I'm going to go with Laine as well. I think him wanting to be the better player between him and Matthews may have got to him in his draft year. And, he did great. He's put up the numbers. He's been fantastic, but I think they definitely need him to be more than that. Austin Matthews, we've seen him improve, and he's just brought his game to another level this season, both offensively and defensively. Now, if Laine can do the same, I think he can be just as much a threat as Matthews, if not even more. But I think if he doesn't step up his game, I see him having a little bit of trouble. And I think, again, it comes down to mentally. I just don't think he's at the same level as Matthews or some of the other young players in the league. And speaking of level-headed, you got Kadri. I'm calling him out just because the last 2 years in Toronto, he's found himself suspended at the worst time possible during the playoffs, which has hurt the Leafs really bad, because he does bring that physical edge to his game that the Leafs do lack in when it comes to physical play. Unfortunately, it gets to him, and he also has a discipline issue that doesn't do well for him. So, if history repeats itself in Colorado, I think next year he may have a hard time finding anybody who's going to want to play with him. But I think he knows he's got to step up, and I think he's going to have a much better series with Colorado this season. His role, I think, has been more established and more determined. He's not trying to be a goal scorer or, an offensive threat. I think he knows he's there to be a grinder, be a pain in the other team in their side. And, he's got to play that game and just not let the penalties get to him. So that's from the forwards. Now we go forward to our blue liners. Here, with respect to defense, you chose Tyson Barrie from the Leafs. I also have him on my list, and Ryan Suter from Minnesota, and I've got Shea Weber from Montreal. So I'll start this one off with Shea Weber. I've discussed it before. You mentioned it as well. He's old. His game is not quite what it used to be. However, if he can be the leader that Montreal needs him to be on that blue line, and make sure that they protect Price, protect the net, do what they got to do to make sure that Price is safe and that, the defense is playing strong, and the way he plays typically is strong. If he can play as physical as he normally would, I think they'll be fine. But him stepping up is a big thing. Now, with Tyson Barrie, on the other hand, up in arms with him, watching him play with the Leafs this season, everybody thought the change of scenery from Colorado would have helped him. Unfortunately, I think he's had a really hard time finding his place on the blue line and understanding where he fits in and the role he needs to play. We saw a bit of an improvement with him under Keefe, and his methods and his play. So I think hopefully that transitions into this playoff round. And I think that if he's able to be that defenseman that they need him to be, I mean, he's got to be a stud. He's got to be there to perform and be that top 4 defenseman for the Leafs. Take a little bit of pressure off of Riley and Muzzin and some of the younger guys back there, then he'll be fine. But he definitely needs to step up for Toronto.
Yeah, like you said, I won't go too much into Tyson Barrie other than he needs to make sure that the team sees less shots put on Anderson so he can keep his confidence up. And then I'll go right into Ryan Sutter. He's not getting any younger. Like I said before, he wants to get another shot at the cup, and he needs to step up for that team because it's him, Parisi. They got a couple of other guys on the team, and that's a team that's going to be in a rebuild in like a year or two, and this is probably going to be his last shot. So he needs to step up, or they're going to get beat, possibly swept if they don't watch out.
Yep, agree with you there. And we'll move over to goalies. You've got Bobrovsky and Kemper having to step up. I've got Freddie Anderson and Carey Price. You can go ahead and start this one off.
Yeah, like I thought about Anderson, but then I looked at the defense and I was like, he sees so many shots because of them, so I don't put most of the blame on him. I only put a little bit of the blame on him. And then I see it as Sergei Bobrovsky was paid all that money for a reason, and that's because he was supposed to be a great goalie, and he hasn't showed it this year. Here and there, he'll do a great, spectacular game, but the way he gets paid, he needs to do it night in and night out. And this is the time to show it on Florida is in a playoff qualifying game series against the Ironers, where they're gonna have great defensive line, and the goalie's gonna do good behind them. He needs to outshine them and get Florida through to the next round. And then Camper, I think the Coyotes need a good goalie play out of him if they have any shot of upsetting their opponent in the first round. It's just basic, simple with that. They're going to have solid physical play from the blue line and the forwards. They're going to hope that Camper and Kessel show up like they should.
Yeah, and with regards to Anderson, I mean, yeah, we know that the defense is the problem, but with him, the other thing is letting that first goal in early. We saw a lot of games this season where within the first 3 shots on net, he's already allowed 1 goal in, and that first period is crucial for him. I mean, if he can be in his form and not allow the quick early goals or the late period goals at the end of the game or at the end of the period, then the dying seconds, then it'll be fine. But the problem with him is once that happens, he can get into a funk where you'll just see 3-4 goals get scored on him in as little as 6-7 shots. And that can't happen. I mean, when it comes down to it, if it does happen with Columbus, the Leafs are going to have a hard time catching up and having to play from behind all the time. As long as their offense is there, we did see many games go 6-5, 7-6, so we know the Leafs can score. It's just a matter of, we also know they can get scored on and a lot. So they're going to have to rely on that. They're going to have to rely on Anderson playing his best game possible. And with Montreal, it'll be the same thing. If they're going to get past Pittsburgh, they're going to need Carey Price to steal a few games. And outside of, again, the defense has to play solid in front of any goalie, really. Carey Price will do the job. He'll do what he needs to do to steal a game. I'm just not sure how much of Malkin and Crosby he's going to be able to stop without his defense helping him out there. So if both these goalies, Freddie and Carey Price, play their A game, I think we're going to see some pretty good hockey in that first round, and we might see some upsets as well.
Oh, yeah.
So we'll move on to our first round predictions. So I'm just going to pull this up really quick here. So we've got in the playoff picture here. So you'll see, I'll just blow it up. So that's just them. So here we go. So we've got Calgary, Winnipeg, again in the West, Nashville, Arizona, Edmonton, Chicago, Vancouver, and Minnesota. And in the East, we've got Toronto, Columbus, Carolina, New York, Pittsburgh, Montreal, and the Islanders and Panthers. So in this here, we've got, we'll start off with you in the East. You feel out of this, it's looking like you've got Flyers, Panthers. I'll switch this over so they've got a visual. So that's what your first round predictions look like right now.
Yeah.
So you've got technically the first round matchup is after the qualifier. So in the first round, we've got Tampa squaring off with the Rangers in the East, Philadelphia, Florida, Boston, Toronto, and Washington, Pittsburgh. And in the West, you've got Colorado, Arizona, Vegas, Winnipeg, St. Louis, Vancouver, and Dallas and Edmonton. So give us a little bit on this.
Luckily for me, being a Flyers fan with this, being at where I had them at the 2 spot, we can avoid Tampa Bay at all costs until the East Finals. That's the first thing I look at it because the Lightning would be the 1, and then the Flyers would be the 2. But I really like that potential of the Lightning and Rangers because you got that scoring power on the Lightning, but then you got really solid goalkeeping on the Rangers, and then the Rangers have the top line is really good at scoring too, but then they're really fast, and then the blue line has been very much improved this year, and I think they could give the Lightning a scare where they could bring them to 6 games, and then And then I also like you get another Capitals Penguins matchup, which is always good, no matter who's on the teams. That has the potential to go 7 games, as long as the Penguins' goalkeeping situation keeps up to where it's at. And then the matchup you don't want to see is Toronto and Boston. With how Boston is, if the blue line on Toronto can play, that's a series that could have a potential to see an upset. And then, of course, the Flyers and Panthers, I see that, and then I just see the Flyers being too much for the Panthers. It'll be a nice thing to see Bobrovsky play against his old team from years ago, the Flyers, when they traded him away to Columbus.
Okay. And then in your West there, again, you've got Colorado, Arizona, Vegas, Winnipeg, Blues and Canucks, and Dallas and Edmonton. Go ahead with that.
Yeah. I really like the Dallas and Edmonton matchup. We had to talk about it before. I thought Edmonton should have got the one of the top 4 spots because they had more points, but I know they went with the win percentage, so they gave it to Dallas because they played 2 less games. I think Edmonton might have a chip on its shoulder because of that. Know that they had to do the qualifying thing rather than being in a round robin, and I think Edmonton could sneak out with the matchup, the series win against Dallas. St. Louis and Vancouver, that's basically a decent matchup of age and veteranness, where last year they won the cup, so they had the veteranness to play in the playoffs. They did last year. They got hot under the coach, and Vancouver's the young newcomer with all the fresh faces. And I think St. Louis would just be too much this year. But don't sleep on Vancouver next year, now that they'll have that little bit of playoff taste. This is one of my favorite matchups of the whole is Winnipeg and Vegas. This is going to be just a 7-game slugfest. I would say, where you got Winnipeg with how they're playing with Line, Scheifele and Connors, and then you got Vegas with Max Pacioretty, Stone, and all those pieces there, and then and Carlson. If he can get hot like he did his first year, the sky's the limit for Vegas. And They're already playing great, and I think they've done better uh, under the new coach than they did under Gallant. They thought Gallant was starting to go down, and they switched coaches at the right time. And then you got Arizona, Colorado. I think Colorado's going to be too much. They had too much skill and too much veterans on that team for Arizona to pull off upset.
Okay. My bracket's going to differ a little bit from yours. So pull that up here. So I've got in the West, I've got a St. Louis Calgary matchup along with Colorado, Vancouver, Dallas and Nashville, and Vegas and Edmonton. I love all this. The St. Louis Calgary series, I think, is going to be a good one if it does happen. I think it'll stretch 6-7 games. Colorado, Vancouver, again, this is going to be a very high-paced, fast series if it happens. With I won't go into detail as to who I think is going to win these series if they do happen, but I mean, it's some good hockey. And then Dallas, Nashville, again, very interesting meeting between the two teams. And then with Vegas and Edmonton, I think it'll be a powerhouse show as to who proves to be the better of the two in that round. And then in the East, I head over there with Boston, Montreal, which is a matchup of ages. I think people would much rather see Boston, Montreal than Boston, Toronto. So that'd be a heck of a round. But again,
two teams that don't like each other.
Yeah, and I mean, again, can Montreal make it past Pittsburgh to get there? So it'll be interesting how that could change as well. And then I've got the Rangers and Philly, which again, I can see blood in that match. The two teams just, again, hate each other, and I think it'd be a great matchup to see in the East. Toronto, Washington, I feel have some unsettled business. I think the Leafs really gave Washington a run when they played them a few years back. And
agreed.
Toronto's got a faster team this year. Definitely better than what they had that year. And I think that'd be a nice series to see. And I feel would probably go to 7 as well. And then you got Tampa and the Islanders. That would just be, again, a really fast-paced game. But I feel that being a potential sweep could go either way. You never know. Who knows where that ends up. So we won't go into detail as to who we feel is going to win this. We'll probably go through all that in upcoming shows so that we have a little better of an idea and a little better of a picture of what's going on in each conference. And then with what happens, once the 4 teams seed first through fourth, and then we'll have a little better idea as to how much of that is going to change in our predictions so far. So I'm going to bring us back here. Okay, so that brings us to East and West. So we've given our predictions. We've given our first round and all that. Now the obvious question, who wins it? Who do you have as your team to win the cup?
See, this was a battle for me back and forth for the past hour and a half since you asked me this question, and it was between the West team that I had, which was Colorado, and then the East team, which I had Philadelphia. I know I'm wearing a Flyers shirt, and it might sound like a biased pick. But when it came down to it, it was just balanced play. And watching the Flyers this year, before the pandemic, if you include the exhibition game against the Penguins, they're 10-1 in the last 11 games, and they have a nice balance of offense and defense, and then they got Carter Hart in goal, who's 22, so he's still got a lot of growing to do, and he's playing great still, and I can see them hosting the cup this year, and I'm just hoping that they don't have to worry about the Tampa Bay before they get to the finals, because that would be the only hurdle I see for them to get from the second round to jump into the finals.
Right on. So you're going with your fan favorite, your biased opinion there on the Flyers.
Yeah.
I'm obviously going to do the same because why not? I'm picking the Leafs. Man, 1967, really long time ago. So it really, it needs to happen sooner rather than later. And I know a lot of people were saying that this year would potentially be a season where there'd be an asterisk over the winner, with the team that winning. Did they really win it? Did they deserve to win it? But I mean, in this case here, I actually think, and I've heard a few analysts on TV say as well, there very well may be an asterisk next to the winner, but not because this is an easier tournament. In my opinion, this is a much harder tournament to win. This is, they were off for so many months, and a lot of these guys were in quarantine or were in condos, stuck in places where they didn't have access to the facilities to train, to keep, going to the gym because gyms were closed. So with a lot of players, especially the younger ones who live in condos within the cities they play in, they were kind of stuck. And I mean, we all know a lot of these guys love their video games and jumped online and started playing games and whatnot. So physical fitness is going to be really demanding in this playoff format. And with the amount of hockey they're playing and the one exhibition game they each played, will it be enough? I mean, it'll be tough, but I think that kind of gives the younger teams a little bit more of an edge. Toronto's hungry. I mean, we saw the Raptors do it last year in the NBA, and it was incredible for the city. And I think it puts a lot of pressure on the Leafs with them now being the only pro team in Toronto to not win since color television was introduced. You know what I mean? So they really need to make this happen. They need to step it up and hopefully bring a cup to Toronto, because I'm tired of hearing people say the only reason the cup comes here is because the Hall of Fame is here. So it'd be nice to see the cup presented to Toronto. Unfortunately, if they get to the finals, I think they've determined that the finals, conference finals and cup finals, will be played in Edmonton. I'm not sure if any of that makes sense, considering both teams are in bubbles, both cities are in bubbles and both cities have been approved. If by chance, let's say it was a Toronto Edmonton final, I can't see why they couldn't go to the format of home and away, considering both arenas are clear. So it'd be nice to have that and give both teams an opportunity to win it at home. But again, it's a stretch. Who knows who's going to be there and what team is going to make it to the finals. That's just me dreaming as a Leaf fan.
And then in the same boat of Stanley Cup drought, of course, the Flyers haven't won it since the Broad Street Boys. That's all we hear here is the Flyers have come close a few times, and then they've lost, and then they haven't been the same since those teams in 70, I believe it was 74, 75, if I don't recall. And the aura of that team just, in my opinion, haunts the franchise ever since. And the last time we had a great run was as the 7th seed, where we weren't even supposed to make it, and we lost to the Blackhawks, where if we would have won the first game, which we were up 2 goals, we could have been hosting the cup up there. And this is a team now that's, I think, is twice as better than that team, because we have a goalie that we can count on. We had a goalie there that came out of nowhere, played half a season, and then the next season he only played a couple games and then got benched. This is a guy we can count on to play the whole thing. He shows up. He has a killer instinct to play. I just picture the save he had against Vancouver, where he dove to the side to catch the puck, where he thought it was going to get go in the back of the net, and he's just done that day in and day out in Philly, and he's been a fan favorite. And then, of course, we had the World Series winning, I believe it was 2007, 2008, and then we finally broke the curse and win the Super Bowl in 2018. And then it's just, now it's the Flyers' turn.
Yep, and I still have nightmares of your Flyers. I believe it was in 2004 when Jeremy Roenick buried the Leafs in the playoffs. In what could have been for both teams. So that wraps things up for us. But as everybody knows, I mean, All Everything Entertainment does a lot. There literally is something going on every single day. If you're looking for, whether you're looking for wrestling, movies, soccer, hockey, It's all here. I mean, we've got it all. So I'm just going to give you a quick listing down below there. We got Daniel, if you want to give a quick mention on your show as well.
Yeah, Sunday. Usually it's Sunday at 11 a.m. We got Stand Your Ground. It's me and Alex Benison, where we talk basically the English Premier League, and then we do a little bit of MLS because they got the MLS Cup going right now. We're taking off this Sunday because the Premier League just ended, and then we got the continuance of the Europa League and the Champions League, but they don't start the next week. So we're going to take this week off, take a little break, and then we're going to dive right back into those, because right after those are done, you got a 2-week break between before the Premier League season starts up again in September, because this whole pandemic has ruined their 2-3 month break, because they used most of it to finish the season. Also tomorrow I'm going to appear on the very first edition of Mainline with the Bossman, Tank, and then Gary. We're going to go over New Japan Pro Wrestling, and that'll be tomorrow. I believe it's at 8. And then, if you haven't seen it, I interviewed Bellator bantamweight contender Rafian Stotts. That was yesterday. You can find that on our Facebook page and YouTube under All Everything Entertainment. I'm just going crazy right now. I got this is the second show, 3 days for me this week. And if I would have had Stand Your Ground, it would have been 4 and 4 days. But luckily, taking a break. It's a great opportunity, it being with AEE, and I'm glad that you joined, because you're a great hockey mind, and I thank you for having me on.
No problem. Thank you for joining us. And again, here for anybody who's wondering, we've also got Whiskey Cinema Sundays at 8, which is exactly what it says. 2 guys drinking different alcohols, discussing movies, actors, and all-around nonsense. They're experts at nothing but opinionated about everything. Great show. You guys got to watch it. Tune in.
And I think they're talking. I think their topic on Sunday will be Indiana Jones.
Perfect. So if you're an Indiana Jones fan, that'll definitely be something you want to tune into and listen to on Sunday. Then we got the NFL dudes, game-winning drive. These guys just kill it every week. There is just 4 guys talking all NFL, very analytical. And they've got their opinions just like everybody else, but it's a good show, man. I mean, I'm not a huge NFL fan, but I watch it just to watch these guys talk and love their passion about it and everything. So, I mean, you got fantasy football as well as actual NFL stuff being spoken about. And that's Mondays at 8:30 p.m. And then you've got our resident showman, Josh DeBoard. He's got the boardroom on Tuesdays, 6 p.m., where he goes through all the latest in the world of professional sports. He touches base pretty much about on every sport that is out there. I mean, he stays away from hockey because he knows that's my show, and he won't touch soccer. He's got you've got that covered. But yeah, he's got it all covered on that. Tuesdays at 6, and then on Wednesdays he returns for Wednesday Night War with Anthony DeSalvatore, and they break down all the action in NXT and AEW, watching and talking at the same time as it happens. They're giving you pretty much a live play-by-play. If you really want to see a show, I mean, I stopped watching wrestling a long time ago, but that show is one of the shows that I enjoy watching. Anthony is really into it, very animated, loves his wrestling. Josh, they work really well together as a team. And if you do tune into that show, make sure to mention how much Anthony loves his favorite wrestler is definitely Pockets. That's his guy. You'll always hear him talking about Pockets. So that's Wednesdays at 7:45 p.m.
And just like Josh says, Anthony's the show, and Josh is just the guy that does the banners.
Yeah. And Thursdays, Josh comes back again with RSH, along with Chuck Winchester, where they give the latest in the world of WWE and AEW. And Josh's sister Yvonne also joins in and gives a lowdown on women's wrestling. So that's Thursdays at 6 p.m. We have other shows that are currently in the lineup. Cage Your IQ, as Daniel mentioned earlier, is not listed on here, but again, that's another great show. You'll want to watch that interview he had the other day. And we're constantly growing, constantly have more shows coming on. So
And I'm looking to pump out the second episode right before UFC 250, I think 3, with Cormier and Stipe Miocic as the main event. I'm gonna always have an episode right before like a big fight, and then like I'm trying to pump out a bunch of interviews as I can. I had Joanne Robinson last week, Rafian Stotts this week. I'm working on getting one for next week. It's just trying to bring in more content, and then RSH. Those guys are great. And then before I bring it back to you, I'm just gonna say, Chuck, watch out because I'm challenging you for that Wednesday night belt. You better have eyes behind the back of your head because I'm coming for it.
That's a challenge, Chuck. I hope you're watching, and if not, I'm sure Daniel will be out to make that challenge again later on this week. So thanks for tuning in, guys. Thanks for checking us out. Again, check out alleverythingentertainment.com. You'll see all of our lineup there, and tune in for Between the Pipes next Friday, 7:30 p.m. See you then. Take care, guys.